Okay, so here's a review of the preterite and the imperfect. So remember, when we talk in the past in Spanish, we use a mix of the preterite and the imperfect tenses to be able to say what happened. We use preterite for things that were completed, begun and completed in the past, and we use imperfect for things that were ongoing, along with other rules. So in this cartoon, you can see that there were some things that were imperfect, like when it says that in the past people used to have their family communication not happen because they were too busy being stuck to the TV. And then there are things in the preterite, like where it's saying that society evolved and technology advanced and things changed. So now everybody's glued to their cell phones instead. So remember, the imperfect tense is the easier one. It has two sets of endings. For AR verbs, you use forms like aba or abas, and for ER/IR verbs, it's things like ia or ias. And then there are only three irregulars: ser, that looks like forms of era; ir looks like iba; and ver is almost the same, except you don't drop the e. It looks like veia or veias. So how would you say then, we used to work? To say we used to work, it would be trabajábamos. Now try they were running. The verb correr. They were running. That would be corrían. Now let's try they were going with the verb ir. That would be ellos iban. Now let's look at the preterite. The preterite also has two sets of endings. For AR preterite, it's a aste o almorzaron, and ER/IR forms are iste yo imosieron. So how would we say he ate, using the verb comer? He ate. That would be comió. How about they listened, using the verb escuchar? How would you say they listened? That would be escucharon. Remember that there are three kinds of verbs that change only in the yo form. If a verb ends with car, it changes to que, gar to gay, and zar to say. Only in the yo form, though. Anything that ends with those things in any other form is the same as always. So how would you say I arrived, using the verb llegar? That would be llegué with a G-U-E, because the gar had to change to gay. How about he began, using the verb empezar? That would be empezó. We don't have to change the ze to a se because it is not in the yo form. Now let's look at double vowel verbs. Double vowel verbs are verbs that have two vowels in a row, like leer, oír, caer, or creer, and here are the endings for them. Notice that all the I's have accents, and in the L or the Aos, or in the bottom of the shoe, you change the I's to Y's. So how would you say he fell, using the verb caer? That would be cayó. You have to change the I to a Y. How about I read, using the verb leer? That would be leí, with an accent on the I. Now let's look at stem changers. Remember the three rules for stem changers. Only verbs that were already stem changers that are IR verbs, stem change, not ER or AR verbs. You only change from an E to an I or an O to a U. And you only make those stem changes in the L or the Aos forms. Again, it's that bottom of the shoe. So how would we say he lied, using the verb mentir? That would be mintió. You have to change the E to an I. How about they slept, using the verb dormir? That would be durmieron. You had to change the O to a U. And let's try I understood, using the verb entender. That would be entendí. We didn't do a stem change because it's an ER verb, and ER verbs don't get stem changes. Okay. Remember, we also learned about the twins and the two short verbs. The twins are the verbs ir and ser. They both look like the fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fueron. And dar and ver look like each other, except they start with different letters. D, diste, dio, or vi, viste, vio, for example. Notice none of those have any accents. So how would you say we went? Using the verb ir. That would be fuimos. How would you say you saw in the to form? Using the verb ver. That would be viste, tu viste. And then on that last page of Paco notes, all the verbs have the same irregular endings. They're a, iste, o, imos, and either eron or ieron. If it's a J verb, it's eron. If it's a U, UV, or I verb, it's ieron. So remember, the J verbs that we have from Paco notes are decir, which looks like dije or dijiste or dijo, traer, which looks like traje, and anything that ends with ducir, like traducir, for example, would become traduje. Your UV verbs, tener looks like tuve, estar like estuve, and andar like anduve. For I verbs, venir looks like vine, querer looks like quise, and hacer looks like hice. But be careful with hacer because the L form changes to iso with a Z. All the rest of the forms have a C. And the last kind is U verbs. Poner looks like puse, poder looks like pude, and saber looks like supe. So how would we do querer in the L form? It would really mean he tried. It's the verb querer, which is to want, but it's a meaning changer, so it becomes he tried. Querer in the L form. That would be quiso. How would we say I translated, using the verb traducir? That would be yo traduje, with a J. It's a J verb. How about he made, using the verb hacer? That would be hizo. That's the one where you have to change the C to a Z. And let's try the verb saber for nosotros. It's another meaning changer. It becomes found out. Normally it would be to know for saber, but it becomes found out. So we found out, saber in the nosotros. That would be supimos. Let's do they were, using the verb estar. That would be estuvieron. Now let's do a couple where you have to decide whether to use preterite or imperfect. Think about the rules that we've learned. So in this sentence, de niño, yo blank a la escuela mucho. Fill in the blank with the right form of caminar. That should be caminaba. You would use the imperfect because it's talking about what you did a lot repeatedly as a child. How about this one? Ayer yo blank un accidente, with the form of the verb ver. That one should be be. You would use preterite because it's yesterday. It's something that happened and was completed in the past. Yo siempre blank muchos libros. What form of leer would you use? That should be leía. I always used to read a lot of books. Since it's always, that's a keyword for imperfect. Señora Black blank la carta tres veces. She translated the letter 3 times. What would you do with traducir? That should be tradujo. It's preterite because it tells you a specific number of times in the past. All right, so that's your review for preterite and imperfect. Hopefully that will help you with your test.